Welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is a very, very special video for me personally, and I think you are going to enjoy it as well. Me and Sarah here, we are at the Rice Museum out here in Hillsboro, Oregon on a cool, rainy fall day. And well, the Rice Museum is a very significant museum for a number of reasons. We're going to look at some of the collections here. Now, this is some place that we first went in 2016, and that was more close to the beginning of our rockhounding career, and we didn't fully appreciate a lot of what the Rice Museum has to offer. However, in that time span, I've gotten very much so into the collection of Zeolites. We've followed the path of Rudy Tschernich. Rudy was actually a curator here at the museum and left a large number of his Zeolites when he passed away to the museum. We're going to be looking at those today. And what else? Right now we're going to go in, we're going to meet up with the collections director and take a tour of the Rice Museum. I'm here with Angela. You are the collections manager here at the Rice Museum. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about some of the history of this place? Because this is a very historically significant rock and mineral museum.
Sure. So this museum is actually a house. So this is the Rice family's house where they lived until 1997. The house was built in the 1950s, so right around the same time that the highway you'll see out front was built. So Richard and Helen Rice built this house kind of as a retirement, sort of like their dream house, basically. So when they built this house, they used materials in the house that represent all their favorite rockhounding locations, their favorite places to visit, and representing all their rockhounding friends. And they also built it with a living space upstairs, but gallery space downstairs. So they built it with the intent, this is what we need to house our collection. Our collection's gotten big enough that we need gallery space. They brought in, before this operated as a museum, when they were living here, they would bring in, local schools and give tours, Boy Scout clubs, and then in 1997 is when they donated the collection to the museum. We formally became a nonprofit, basically in order to preserve the collection and carry on the work that they've been doing.
It is a very extensive collection. Do you happen to know how many objects are in the collection about?
About 7,000. Now it's probably closer, that's one of the last counts we have, but it's probably over 10,000 at this point, especially if you include things like books. The collection of Rudy Zeolites definitely goes over that. That's another 10,000 right there. So,
which that's something we're not going to be looking at 10,000 today, but we will be looking at some very selected specimens, which you were kind enough to bring out for us. There are a number of specimens that he donated that are actually on display.
Yes, quite a few.
And we will walk around and we will be looking at some of these. We are not by any means doing the Rice Museum justice today and doing a full meticulous tour, but we will show you some highlights of some of the amazing collections that you guys have here.
It's a teaser.
Yeah.
If we have like pop-up vendors, we like to highlight local businesses and stuff. So sometimes we'll have them come in for special events. If we have an education program, we'll set something up in here. But also we just like there to be a space where people can kind of relax and enjoy the house. And so just sort of rest their museum feet, sort of, too.
There's been a lot of improvements to this space since we were here in 2016. There's been some remodeling work done. I would say it is significantly cleaner looking. And
Thanks. That's what we're trying for. We're trying to honor the historic building, but also make it enjoyable for visitors. So we're trying to make sure to provide spaces for people to sit down, spaces for kids, spaces for people of all interests.
So many museums do not cycle their display cases very much. I mean, it's hard. I understand it. You guys do an excellent job, though. You put is it every couple of months you're kind of cycling?
We're constantly working on the next exhibit, basically. Okay. So there's always something new. So this one's up just for the month of October. This is just to celebrate Halloween. So it's like, let's get some spooky minerals out there. So, like vampirite. Petrified wood, it's scary on its own. You don't even have to change the name. So
we have that very intimidating Dugway Thunder Egg there.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew, but rocks can't enter your home unless you invite them in, which I feel is a danger for, that's certainly something I have a problem with. So,
and this is This is permanent.
This is
a
relatively
permanent
permanent. Yeah. No, I'm never going to say anything's permanent. Things can change.
Okay.
But yes, this is a permanent display. So this is kind of your intro. When you enter the museum, a lot of times you'll come in through this door, although sometimes people will start with the Northwest Gallery. That's fine too. But you come in, you're sort of like, okay, I'm at a museum. It's a rock and mineral museum. What am I going to see? What am I going to experience? What is a rock? What's a mineral? What's a crystal? What's the difference? And that's what this talks about, is like, all rocks are made of crystals, and it just sort of walks you through that. And then it goes through, the different, mineral groups with a few examples of each. But it's also like a taster, too, of what you'll see in the rest of the museum.
And we have an incredible specimen that I see is donated by Rudy right there.
Yep, that's a great one. That's from Washington, yeah.
One thing that is very impressive about Rudy's collection is that a big part of it was collected before Weyerhaeuser took over large swaths of property in Western Washington. So I know that you guys have a lot of unobtainable minerals.
Right. Places that you can't get to anymore. Yeah.
And that would be one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true of the whole collection, actually. The Rice family, when they were collectors too, a lot of people say like, oh, did the Rices have a lot of money? And it's not about that. That's not how they got some of these specimens. It's about being in the right place at the right time, like being able to access areas before, the areas were mined out or before they were inaccessible. So sort of even in their like worldwide collection of material, there's a lot of stuff like that that's like old material.
And I think that's a great point. I mean, when you go self-collecting a lot, we have sometimes narrow windows that we can collect within, and it does kind of date the collection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is it's fantastic to see specimens that we can't go and find today.
Right. Like we add to the collection continually through donations, but like there are things in here that can't be found again.
So we have a whole bunch of pieces from the Rices.
Yep. So this kind of talks about the history of the Rice family and who they are, and kind of like basically who is it, why is this museum here, right? This is how this happened, and it started with they went to the Oregon coast. And one of the things we've got up here is these are the actual first pieces. They went to the coast and they picked up, a few agates, a few pieces of jasper, and they're like, okay, I kind of like this. They took it to a rock shop at the coast. They got someone to polish it for them. They're like, okay. And then from there they were hooked, right? So this collection, like the amazing collection you see in this building, came from, someone going to the beach and picking up pretty rocks.
We have almost an exactly identical story where me and Sarah, we went to the Oregon coast and picked up some very, very small beach agates.
Oh, well, next thing you know.
But that sunk the hook in us.
Next thing you know, you're going to have a museum.
Yeah, we'll have this will be.
I always tell people it's a warning, right? Like it's both like a great story, but it's also a warning. Like, your collection's going to grow. You're going to get hooked. So yeah, this kind of talks about some of the different locations where they did their collecting. A lot of Mexico, a lot of warm southern areas like Arizona, because when you work as a logger, which Richard Rice worked as a logger, the winter months are not good times to be logging in the Pacific Northwest, too cold, too rainy, too soggy. So they would take a vacation to Mexico and go collect opals and, meet up with some of their friends and trade things. And basically it built from there. They started going to the Tucson show. They started building networks. But yeah, this goes through a cycle of long wave light, short wave light, a combination of long wave and short wave. Then it will show darkness for minutes. You can see which ones continue to fluoresce, and then it'll show it under sort of a normal light bulb, so you can see what these rocks would look like if you were to encounter them, in the wild.
Fluorescent rocks and minerals really, I think for the amateur, it's a very attractive thing. It's very impressive to see.
Yeah, they could be under your feet because when you see what they look like under normal light.
So you can see the phosphorescence glow of some of them.
Yep.
I love fluorescent rocks because usually they look so meh in natural light, and then you turn on the UV and it's just a rainbow of color.
Yeah, there's only one or two of these that really, would stand out to you if you weren't looking at them under fluorescent. So.
I don't know the history of fluorescence, but I can only imagine that the first person to do this was they had their mind blown by some specimens.
Well, people saw the ones that continue to fluoresce, that sort of effect, before we were isolating specific. So basically, the sun's light, right after sunset, people would see rocks that would continue to fluoresce in the field. So before we were, isolating light frequencies into bulbs to kind of shine at things like this, people were aware that this was happening. But once people started noticing, through the exploration of spectrums, that this was happening, that's how we developed fluorescent light bulbs, was through these rocks.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. The coating on the inside of the light bulbs is originally, now there's other materials that they use, but the first ones was powdered material from minerals that are in these rocks. Yeah.
A beautiful fossil gallery.
Yep, this is our fossil gallery. So we've got some marine fossils, we've got megafauna in this case. One of my favorite things is down here, we've got all teeth. So you got some good teeth comparison sizes if you want some horse teeth, some mastodon teeth, some mammoth teeth. Helps you tell the difference between them. You can see mammoths, baby mammoth versus adult mammoth.
This is something I remember. You have some incredibly well prepared trilobite fossils.
Yeah, this is actually one of the things too about when I say there's more to the collection than we can exhibit at one time. The trilobites are something in here that we switch out periodically because there's a lot of different well-prepared trilobites like this that we have that we've.
And while we're here looking at it, that one's in the coloring book.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we've got a museum coloring book. So we have a custom coloring book that was made by an individual called Diamond Dan. I can show you a copy of it later if you want. But yeah, basically I sent pictures of different things in the museum and he made educational color pages about them. So
I dig it.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Yeah. Yep, in that case is our dinosaur stuff. And actually my favorite thing in this case, you'll see in the middle, there's some dinosaur skin imprints. Not as flashy as some of the other fossils, but these guys right down here, I really like that because that helps me visualize, a dinosaur.
That's not something you typically see.
No, I haven't really seen that too many other places. Yeah, it's a really cool thing to have in the collection.
There's plenty of dinosaur bone that you see in collections. I have some in my collection as well. And but the dinosaur skin is that has to be significantly more rare.
Yeah, anything soft tissue, is not going to preserve well. So with skin, you're not going to get an actual fossil of skin. You're going to get a fossil imprint of where skin was in contact with rock that preserved that texture. Oh, and that one behind you, actually, that's a dinosaur bone it's out for touching. You can sort of, examine, you can see the cell structure in the edge. And
I do like the hands-on aspects that you have here. You do have a kid's activity room.
Yeah.
And
A little education room. Yeah.
There's a lot of rocks that they can touch with.
Absolutely.
Very nice to have that hands-on aspect of a museum.
Yeah. It's really nice to. One of our things is we kind of think of this as a place where some of the technology is not necessarily required. This is sort of getting you back in touch with the physical earth materials, I guess. It's kind of a theme throughout the house. The choices that the Rice family made in building the house was highlighting different woods, different stones that represented earth materials that they found a lot of beauty in. And so we kind of try and highlight that too with the touchables and stuff like that. Whatever way you find beauty, whether it's touching something smooth or rough, or whether it's seeing a beautiful color, that sort of thing. Yeah. So what we've got in here, special exhibit.
So this is a local artist from Portland.
Yep.
And she's doing carvings.
Yeah, so what she is doing is she is carving. These are all hand carved by Naomi Sarna. She is carving gem materials, so these are all really difficult materials to work with. And my favorite thing about her carving is that she is doing it in such a way that highlights and improves, this is my opinion, but I feel like this is what, you know, is happening here. It highlights and potentially improves the material she's working with, rather than a carving where the carving and the material are two separate things, and the style of the carving kind of obscures the nature of the rock or mineral or gem you're working with. So you see like some rutilated quartz in here, you know, things where she's carved and polished to show some of that like amazing internal structure. So I don't know, I'm a big fan of her stuff. We're really lucky to have it here.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
And we have some natural examples of what she's working with over
right.
here.
So this is a companion case, and so basically every material that you see over there that she's carved, I've got an example of over here from the collection. So there's silver fittings on some of the jewelry, so I've got a piece of silver, you know. There's quartz that's been carved up. Okay. We've got some quartz that's been, you know, we've got quartz crystals over here, and this is the sort of quartz, the rock crystal material that she's working with.
I have some very impressive
giant morganite down here. Yeah, this is one of those things that, like I was saying, I love that we get the opportunity to switch up our collections and highlight different pieces, because this is an amazing piece. You know, this was collected, anything you see that says this donated by Richard and Helen Rice, you can tell that that's something that was part of their original collection. This is something that, you know, I can't imagine when they found this piece and said like, all right, time to add this to our collection. That must have been amazing to see that. Like, I can't figure out what my favorite part of it is, if it's the size of the morganite or if it's the shape of this quartz that's growing off of it. Like the crystal shape on this is,
I think that
just outstanding.
the composition of the specimen, the morganite and the quartz, complement each other nicely, and
everything going on here is so interesting. So,
and that's basically the upstairs. There is a whole basement, which maybe we can go do a quick look at next. This is probably the most impressive collection of petrified wood, hands down.
We're truly honored to have this here. So everything in here belongs to the Murphy family. So this is the Murphy Petrified Wood Gallery. Murphy family, really similar to the Rice family, are collectors who, and the Murphys and the Rices met each other at the Tucson show. And sort of, even though the two families are local to here, they got to know each other better at the Tucson show. The Murphys had started this giant collection. They said to the Rice family, we have too much material, we're tired of storing petrified wood in the closets, under the beds, in the dressers. And that's no joke, that's, you know, their house was full. They're like, and the Rice family said, hey, we have a house where we just built a gallery on one side, but then we have the other unfinished area that we've been using as a workshop. They've been storing antique furniture in here, doing some you know, some woodworking and stuff in here. Would you like to have a gallery? And so ever since then, that's where this collection has been housed.
And one thing that we need to look at over here is the saw that this material was cut on, because it is a homemade drag saw. Yep,
that is the only way to cut some of these large pieces, to get good cuts, and then the polishing equipment also required to get like a smooth, even polish rather than something with divots on such a large piece like this. It's something really special to what the Murphy family has designed. A lot of engineering background there. And so Dennis Murphy, you know, built the original material. One of his sons continues to work on this, and you'll see him if you're ever at the Denver show or the Tucson show. He's selling pieces like this as coffee tables.
It is incredible to see this stuff up close.
Yeah, I love it. The center one's got like some amethyst crystals in it that I really enjoy. You see that in some of those little pockets.
Oh yeah, some little pockets there. Wow.
Yep, so there's petrified wood in here from all over the world, but with a focus on the Northwest, and then also Arizona wood too.
And if we head over here and look at this case, a lot of work has gone into the species identification.
Yes, very difficult in my opinion.
It is such a great resource to be able to see this. I think for a lot of people, we collect petrified wood, or you just have petrified wood in your collection and you don't actually know what the wood species is.
Yeah, in petrified wood, you can't tell the difference from, you know, what species it is based on the color. A lot of people will find one and say that's sort of red colored, and they'll say like, oh, hang on, is this redwood? We're like, well, it's colored red, but it's not redwood. You have to look at the cell structure to be able to tell what you've got there. The colors in the wood only represents the mineralization, the minerals that replace the cells. So it's the texture and the pattern of the cells at a microscopic level is what you really need to identify. So you can often identify location based on the color just because you know that those minerals are common in that location. So like Arizona wood, you can kind of look around this gallery and see, like you can pick those out probably just from standing here, right? Like red.
They're very prominent.
Right. And there's a couple other localities that are like that, but you can't jump at a piece of wood like that and be like, I know what kind of tree that is. Except for probably petrified palm trees, because they've got that stacked structure in them, that cell structure.
Yeah, it's very prominent.
Yeah. That's the only one when people ask me if I'll identify species for them. I'm like, petrified palm.
So a lot of people will do spheres, and we've seen spheres at many shows. One thing that I love about what you guys have here is you have cubes.
Yes.
You have identified cubes, which I think
and this is so satisfying too to look at,
It is incredibly satisfying to look at the petrified wood cubes.
Yeah, and this is a good, even though identifying visually petrified wood isn't always something you can do, this is a really helpful display showing some of the different textures where some types of wood will have something that jumps out, like, a wider banding or a narrower banding or a polka dot or a rougher texture. So
I love it.
Yeah. So this is one of our temporary exhibits. Pretty soon this is going to be actually replaced by a Minecraft exhibit.
Okay.
So we're going to do an exhibit showing the Minecraft block in the video game and then what the mineral looks like in the real world.
Some more cubes.
Yeah, when you're talking about the cubes, I'm pretty excited about because I'm going to get a lot of cubes in here. So
the Fool's Gallery. Can you explain to us what we're looking at?
All right, so we're looking at different things, different minerals, rocks and fossils that might fool you. So on one end here, we're looking at synthetic gems and fake fossils. So that's what you've got here. So those are things that are, depending on how you would say it, fake. Now, I don't want to say that faceted gems are fake because there's a lot of craftsmanship and work that goes into that, right? But they are synthetic materials, synthetically grown. And then we've got synthetically grown, human-made synthetic materials and minerals down there. We got, some silicon, like you use for silicon wafers, that sort of thing. A lot of lab-grown stuff.
It still is incredibly
gorgeous,
colorful and beautiful to look at.
Yeah. And then we've also got a collection of fool's gold in here, of course, since it's the Fool's Gallery. So this is actually 14 pieces of fool's gold and 1 piece of real gold. And I have labeled all of them as unknown specimens, and I have provided the localities, and so people can come look at this and try and guess which one's the real gold.
It's very fun.
Yep. Pseudomorphs that we have in this section. So these are things that look like one type of mineral but are made of a different type of mineral, so minerals taking the form of different minerals. And then I've got some polyhedroid agates down in here. So these 2 areas are actually things that are real but potentially look fake. So we got the top shelf, we've got just some real minerals that I think are very surprising to look at, like the unnatural seeming shapes or colors or stuff like that in them. And then the polyhedroid agate's also a natural thing. Talk about one of those things that are you can't really find anymore.
The yellow brucite stands out. It's so incredibly such a brightly saturated yellow that I can see how people would see something like that maybe and be like, that's dyed.
Right, yeah. So when you look at some of those colors, you're like, nope, nature does that. That's how it happens, yeah.
Can we talk about the floor for a second?
Absolutely.
I know maybe it's not the most impressive feature to see in a museum, but I love that this both existed and you have protected it.
Yeah, we had some flood damage to our floor down here, and so we had to replace a lot of the floor tiles, but we worked with the contractors to find a way to preserve this because this is such an important part of the history of this house. Like putting a Rice family crest in the gallery space in the basement of your house is just like, it's just so classic. That's just like the character of this place.
Well, maybe it's time for me to do my own linoleum artwork. So what is this room that we are in right now?
All right, so this is the main gallery. So everything in here, this is like a worldwide collection of minerals, but this is basically where the Rice family originally had their collection. What you're seeing in here, like as far as woodwork and layout, this is the way this was when the Rice family was living in the upstairs of the house. Now, of course, we have, added to and curated the collection, subtracted from, moved things around in here, but a lot of what you'll see in here is original Rice family collection pieces. A couple things in here that are pretty special is, so we've got some stibnite from Japan in here. So I know that this locality, we've got this one in the coloring book too, actually this locality is pretty unusual to find large specimens from. We've got that small little piece of Amazonite with smoky quartz back there is one of the ones that was kind of significant to the Rice family. So a lot of the pieces in here, they would sort of purchase each other gifts for birthdays and stuff like that. So that's one of the ones that usually I point at as a very prized piece, but we're lucky enough to have one on loan right now. We've got this one on loan. So we've got this on loan from Joe Doris. That one's called the Smoky Hawk Queen, and that is a huge, chunky Amazonite with smoky quartz.
That is
Colorado.
incredible.
Yeah. And so that's from the same locality as that other one, but the size of the crystals on that are just amazing.
We obviously have to show the Alma Rose.
Of course, yeah. So the Alma Rose is kind of the jewel of the collection. Every museum has at least one or two, sort of like main pieces that everything else is around, and the Alma Rose is ours. So Richard and Helen Rice purchased the Alma Rose. This was in the 90s, so right when this was first discovered at the Sweet Home Mine, they bought both the Alma Rose and the Alma King. So both of those two famous pieces, and they sold the Alma King to the Coors Beers Company, and Coors Beer donated that to the museum in Denver. So the Alma King is in Denver, and we have the Alma Rose.
Impressive. It's a beautiful specimen to have on display right in the middle of the room.
Right. And there's an argument which one's better, right? The King or the Rose. And in my opinion, the Rose. It's got, the mineralogy is better, like the variety of minerals you have on there. Mm-hmm. But, I can see, I guess some people like the slightly larger chunky size on the King. So, but yeah, it's unusual to see rhodochrosite in large, chunky crystals, gem quality like that. A lot of times you'll see it more as, like what we're seeing over here, more of this stalactite type material or as a coating or smaller crystals, but as sort of one of those South Africa ones there. But
there's a nice plate of galena for me.
Exactly, there's a good one. There's definitely plenty of good galena here too, so. This Cave of Swords piece down here is pretty great. A lot of people are familiar with the Cave of Crystals. I believe that's what the large one's called, right? So you see it on the internet a lot of times, as like the giant gypsum crystals so big that you see like people walking on it and they're wearing protective suits because it's so hot in there that you can't, your sweat doesn't evaporate because it's so humid, so it's very easy for your body to overheat, so you have to wear a special cooling suit. So this piece is from the cave right before that cave. So this is probably the furthest that you can go in there without special suits. And this is in this particular area. This has to be pumped free of water for you to be able to explore it. So it's not something that people can always go into. But back in the 50s, there was a time when Richard and Helen Rice were out, sort of on a road trip, and there's some pictures of that upstairs in that case too. You'll see them on that road trip. They stopped off at Nica, Mexico, and at this cave, and they talked to the cave owner, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I think I can sneak you guys in for a tour, but there's one problem. We don't allow women in the mine." And Helen Rice said, "Are you sure?" And he's like, I'll sneak you in." So Helen Rice, along with the owner of the mine's wife, who also went with them, first women ever in that mine.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
I did not know that.
Yep. Because it was a local superstition sort of thing, right? Like miners, that's a dangerous job, so there's a lot of superstition. Like you can understand when you're, could be crushed by rocket any time, like superstitions come out of places, right? So this was a day that there wasn't active mining, and so it didn't get anyone too worried, I think, too. But so this piece, and there was another one we saw upstairs, they collected while they were there, and, put it in a mine cart and said, oh, let's have that meet us when we get back up to the top.
We are in the Northwest Gallery. This is an entirely separate building from the house.
Yep.
And like the name implies, Northwest related specimens. One thing that immediately pops out to me, Rudy Tschernich's license plate.
Yep. Zeolite. Yeah, so Rudy actually, this is my office that you have with the license plate there, but Rudy actually, designed and built, along with, help with some others, this entire gallery. So there wasn't a Northwest Gallery before there was Rudy. He built the office that I work in. He built the cases. He designed what was going to go in here. And a large part of that was to house his zeolite collection and to display zeolites in the Northwest. But also before that, Northwest material at this museum wasn't separated out. So a lot of this Northwest material was here, but it was combined into the main gallery and the other rooms along with everything else. And by having this separate gallery, we've provided a resource for people to see what could you find around here.
And Rudy was a curator here at the museum from 2003 to 2011.
I think that's correct.
I think that's correct. He passed away in 2017.
Yeah.
So he had plenty of years to work on some of this stuff.
Yeah, no, he made a big impact on the museum. And
we got to show the Opal Butte thunder egg.
Oh, yeah.
We do a fair amount of rock hounding for thunder eggs, but nothing quite of this scale. And that is incredible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible.
Right. We often say that it's the biggest opal-filled thunder egg in the world. I would say that it is probably the biggest opal-filled thunder egg in the world that someone has bothered to move into a museum or managed to move inside into a museum or into a collection. That is
Opal Butte definitely produces some beast of a thunder egg.
Yeah. So I feel like I may have seen pictures of larger thunder eggs, but not cut open, so you wouldn't know if there's opal in there, and not that anyone has managed to transport.
Yeah, there's this is a nice specimen showing it in its rough, as opposed to what you would need a 6-foot drag saw,
amazing,
at least,
yeah,
or a wire saw perhaps. To
a wire saw probably be the best way, but yeah,
like that.
You'd need a massive saw regardless. It would be such a project. So yeah, you can tell that's why on purpose they went for a chiseled and then polished and shaped work. So this is our vintage Pacific Northwest mineral localities map. So all the localities on here are researched by Rudy and friends, and so you push the button and it lights up where you will find these materials. Now, I call it vintage, which I feel like is important for anyone who's currently rockhounding to know, because this map has not been updated. This is as of a specific snapshot in time, so that is a locality where there was a zeolite example, for example, because you're hitting the zeolite button, at one time. Is there a zeolite deposit there still? Is there anything significant to collect? I would consult a more modern resource before getting in the car and heading out.
Do we know what the time period is that this was installed?
This would have been early 2000s.
Okay.
So yeah, like it's still a relatively good reference for the geology of the Northwest area. So it's pretty cool to say like, oh, I see that they're in this area or not in this area, or where agates are found. But when I look at this agate map and I think about where I've found agates, I'm like, well, I kind of feel like there's some other places that I found an agate, right? Like maybe along a river.
But from the perspective of an educational tool, like it's so amazing to be able to see deposits lit up on the map.
It's really tactile, and my favorite part, to the extent that I had to put a little sign next to it, is the sunstone button. You hit the sunstone button. It's Oregon sunstones we're talking about specifically, and then there will be one light that lights up. Don't know if you saw it or not, but yeah, you only see it if you know where to look for it usually.
Yeah, one right there.
Yep. Yeah, and that starts a great conversation about what's different about Oregon sunstones. You know, feldspar is a very common mineral. How is it that sunstones, which are feldspar, are found in one location? So we've got a few zeolites over here on this side.
I could definitely spend my whole day observing this beautiful collection.
Yeah, yeah.
It is so impressive to see some of these. The scale of the specimens that he collected.
Right, so you'll find a few in here that won't say donated by Rudy Tschernich, but almost every single one that we have on display. And that's because our best specimens came from Rudy's collection, or items that he collected and donated to the museum, right? So throughout the time he was working here, he was also collecting and donating things. He donated good examples for the collection when he started the job, before he worked here too, you know. And a lot of the things, my understanding is, many of these he personally collected, but also many of them he traded for or bought and sold for. Especially when you get to some of the, you know, the stuff from India. So.
He did a couple of trips to India.
Yeah, yeah. No, I do know that, yeah. And we've got a couple pictures, so. But general organization, we sort of have Northwest material, sort of Washington, Idaho at the start here, move into more Oregon material, other US material, then European material, and Indian material.
I think we definitely need to point out this piece from Poison Creek, which is a locality we were recently just at.
Were you?
And that...
Did you find anything like that?
We did not find anything of that scale.
Yeah, yeah. Anything with little bow ties, though?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
No, we got some...
So you found some similar material, but just not big.
Decent stuff, nothing of that scale.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's impressive to see what was coming out of those like breccia pipes going into that road cut. Oh my gosh.
Really nice one added to the collection recently, donated by Bruce Carter back here, that I just love. But unfortunately, it's something that he purchased, and he wasn't able to find out what the locality was on that.
The pink stolbite?
Yeah, yeah. It's such an interesting, kind of biological worm shape.
Yeah,
so.
it gives like some strong caterpillar vibes.
Yeah. So I'm really fond of that one as a new acquisition. We don't usually need to acquire new zeolites. We've got a pretty thorough collection. But then when you get an aesthetic piece like that, you're like, oh yeah, that's good.
And I love the photos that you have of some of the localities. Now, for people at home, almost every single photo here is up on Mindat. So Rudy scanned, I want to say 3,300 photos and put them up on Mindat. So.
Yeah, and a lot of the ones that we have here, you'll start to see that some of these are pretty faded and starting to peel off. You know, there's a printing project in our future of updating some of these, but some of these I don't have great large-scale files of to be able to print a high-quality print like this again. So it's possible we might end up switching some of them up, which is a shame, but some of them are faded to the point where there's not much to see in the photo anymore. But this one's a pretty well-known photo. That one I'm going to be able to get a good one of back up. I will say I have a degree in geology from Portland State, and zeolites were not discussed.
Really?
Essentially not discussed. I spent very little time thinking of zeolites until I started the job here. I love these little guys.
The Mordnites?
Yeah, the little fuzzy gumdrops. They're so cute. But that is also the experience of most visitors. Most visitors come here, they look at the map, they start their visit to the Northwest, they look at the map, they push the buttons, they say, zeolites, what's that? I've never heard of it. And then they walk around the corner and they're like, oh wow. You know, and they find out both about how many natural zeolites we have around here, how beautiful they can be, but also, you know, we've got a little information up here, and sometimes we'll do a little talking about how useful they are in industry and how basically significant they are in our lives. You know, we can't be living on the space station without zeolites. If you know anyone who's got one of those oxygen compressors that compresses oxygen, you know, from the air that they carry oxygen around with them, zeolites are what are performing that function. If you've got, you know, if you'd like to wear natural deodorant, that's zeolite. If you have kitty litter, that's zeolite. If you have fish in fish tanks, that's zeolite. Yeah, they're pretty great little molecular sponges. Yeah,
they are in everything. Hydrocarbon cracking is like the industry that utilizes zeolites on a massive scale.
Yeah.
So all of our lovely petroleum products that we all depend upon.
Yeah. I mean, and that's not usually, you know, that's usually like a lab-grown zeolite.
Yes.
Once someone has studied zeolites to the extent, probably like Rudy did, I don't know if we consider that his research contributed directly to this, but I feel like once someone's done a really thorough study of how a zeolite can form, what types of forms are possible, then you can use that theory to create lab-grown zeolites.
Yes, lab-grown zeolites. I mean, I don't even know what the number is now. I think it's well over 400. It was the last known number that I can pull out of my head. But yeah, the uses for industry is high, but the animal scene from Russia over here is incredibly impressive to see. Yeah,
the size of those guys. That's also a fun one when visitors don't know how to pronounce it correctly. For me, you know, when I sit in my office, I can hear people trying to pronounce that. So.
Any Russian vacations in store for us? Can we go do some collecting? Yeah. Some very impressive pieces from India. Mm-hmm. Anybody out there that really enjoys zeolites from India, I know in the microprobe, Rudy wrote about one of his trips to India, and he has some interesting stories published in that about going on site and just interacting with people in India.
Must be what some of these pictures are from that trip, I would imagine. Yeah. You know, I don't think I've read that. Now I'm going to read that. That's
Microprobe is a wealth of information.
Yep. All right, this is from India also. This is a recreation of a vug in India. So this is paper mache with real crystals installed. So there was a water well that was being dug in India. When they were digging the wall, they broke into this pocket and said, wow, okay, like we do need water. So we're going to have to destroy this. But first, they took pictures of everything, collected all the crystals out of there, and then everything got mailed back here for Rudy to recreate in the gallery. So a lot of times when people say, like, how do people find things like this? I think this was probably a slightly unusual way, but this is an example of what it would feel like.
That is very cool. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's so impressive to see. Man, I can't imagine.
Yeah. So yep, that's the vug.
And then obviously we have a whole lot of other Northwest material that you can
there's some petrified wood. We got some items, some Washington jade, a few sunstones. Some of my favorites are, we've got a piece of meta-otnite over here from Spokane area. That's a pretty beautiful one.
A locality we've visited a number of times.
Have you? That's great. Yeah.
That is a very nice specimen. That's on the larger end.
Yeah.
Ever came out of that mine.
Yeah, it's pretty outstanding. Specimens like from this location tend to be a little crumbly, so that's part of it also.
Do you happen to know, is that coated?
This is not coated.
That's on, okay.
Yeah. It is something that I've looked into because I'm worried to preserve it in the long term. We're going to need to. Yeah. So it's.
I would say that makes it almost even more rare.
Right.
All the specimens of that size they were coated when they were pulled out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we have a couple others in storage that are similar to this, but have fallen into more than one piece. So
it tends to do that.
We're aside from the fact that it's radioactive, regardless, we're still pretty careful with this one because of how delicate it is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would say maybe that's probably the finest specimen that I've seen. Maybe the second, the museum in Butte.
Okay, yeah.
Very nice.
Very cool. And then the absolute best specimen is something we have on loan, but in my opinion, this is one of the best in the Northwest Gallery. This just preposterous scepter. That came out of the pocket hole, I'm told, that has not been repaired. It was actually pulled out that way. And Aaron Whiting has been kind enough to leave that on loan with us. That's been on loan since the Northwest Gallery opened. And anytime we need to do any work in here, I am definitely on the phone to him to say, I need you to move this. I'm terrified. I'm pretty confident handling most types of minerals, but wow, that one is, wow.
I can't imagine the extraction and like how when they were like 80% extracted on that, and you're just, that would be nerve-wracking to handle.
Yeah.
Obviously, some specimens from Bruce or Bob Jackson's claim.
Yep, from some Spruce Ridge stuff. Yeah.
I kind of like the ones that are very pyrite heavy.
Yeah, me too.
Everybody goes towards the quartz crystals, but very pyrite heavy pieces are very nice.
Yeah, the quartz ones are great, but I feel like what really makes a piece is if it's got some pyrite in there, just to spice it up.
There's a lot of clear quartz in this world.
Right, exactly. So Spruce Ridge, what you've got that's unique there is, getting that combo. Yeah, those barrites, color-wise, not the greatest specimen, but you've got so many generations of barite going on there that just looking at this one is really kind of a trip. You've got your large crystals that look like bars of soap, and then you've got your, sort of like glittery sugar crust on there of like teeny tiny crystals. You got medium-sized crystals. Like you can sit here and try and count how many. I think I've gotten up to 5 so far, but
those are impressive plates.
Yeah, and that mine location, after it was found, was lost for a while, and then we have a museum volunteer here actually that found it more recently. It's been refound. So yeah, we got a bunch of thunder eggs here. This one here we call Meatball. This is an uncut thunder egg from Opal Butte, and it's one of my favorite things to talk to visitors about because, you don't know what's inside.
It could be a dud.
It absolutely could be. And it absolutely could be like the one we looked at over by the door, because that's also from Opal Butte. It could be like this piece right here that's probably one of the most beautiful thunder eggs as far as opal filled that I've ever seen, with precious opal, fire opal, jelly opal, you've got common opal, you've got them all in there. So also from Opal Butte. So the mystery of Meatball really, really gets it going. So some of these were also collected and donated by Rudy. Most of them that are from that era are probably polished by a local expert in thunder eggs named Tom Wilson.
Okay.
So, when I go to the rock shows around here, I will see his display cases. And I went to Portland Regional, the show recently, it was a couple weekends ago, and I saw this piece on display. And I said, but that piece is in the museum. For every thunder egg, there's 2 halves.
Yes.
So he has 1 half, and we have the other half of that one. So clearly he did the polishing work on that one.
Some very impressive thunder eggs.
So yeah, these 2 cases here, mostly Northwest stuff, and then this one over here, this is the rest of the U.S. and worldwide stuff.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the Northwest Gallery
here. We do have some zeolites that we're going to look at next of Rudy's, specifically from the Rock Island Dam, which is a locality that is particularly of interest to me. So we will go do that next.
Cool.
So you were just telling me that we have 9,000 zeolites in these cases that were donated by Rudy.
Yep, this is from Rudy's personal collection.
Oh my gosh.
And it's a truly outstanding
the scale of
Very
it,
complete.
it makes my collection of zeolites and thumbnails and micros look very insignificant.
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near 9,000 yet. Now, are there many micros here?
Nothing. I have not seen any micros in this collection. Yeah, only thumbnails about as small as I've seen.
It's yeah. Wow. I don't even know where to look.
Yeah.
Like,
choose your favorite location, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got the Oregon and Washington ones is the majority of what's in here, but then there's also some other localities too.
obviously,
this is where I pulled yours from. Yeah.
This is what we're going to go look at here.
Right. So there's something else in here too. There's some other localities.
Okay. Oh my gosh. All right. Thank you so much for showing this to me. That is wild to see. We are in the Rice Museum's gift shop, and it is a very nice gift shop. It's not just a bunch of kind of, I guess, kitschy stuff, which most gift shops have become these days. You have a lot of beautiful specimens in here.
Oh yeah. Well, a lot of what we like to do is, make sure to get stuff back out into people's hands, right? So when we receive donated specimens, anything we sell in the gift shop supports the museum, but we also consider it a great spot for people to be able to kind of like rehouse their collections through us too.
And not everything that gets donated is display case quality, even if there might be a handful of those.
Right.
Some things are kind of meant to be in a collection, let's say like mine.
Well, yeah, so when something gets donated here, one thing we always make clear to donors is that it could be for the collection if there is an appropriate, like a gap in the collection. And the reason we have to be careful about that is because it costs money to store things. That takes time, that takes buildings, that takes, heating and cooling. So storage is one of the main costs of a museum. So you got to be careful about not adding more than you can safely care for. But things can go for the collection. They can go for the education collection, which would mean something that's hands-on. For education, people can touch it. It's okay if it gets destroyed. Things can go for if we have raffles, if we have auctions, to support the museum that way through financial support or through our gift shop, which supports the museum both financially, but even more, is really getting material back out into collectors, hands. So yeah.
Do you have a membership program
Yes, we
for
do a
the
membership
museum?
program. Yep.
And that what exactly does that entail?
Well, sure. I got a little flyer about it here.
So if you're a member here, which we have one of these guys right here.
Yep. So yeah, if you're a member here, you get free admission to the museum for a year. And you get a discount on gift shop items, and you're the first to know when we have any special events, so you get a special newsletter. And then we are a Smithsonian affiliate, so there's also a program where you can get reciprocal admission to other Smithsonian museums, because we're technically part of the Smithsonian.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So we're a Smithsonian affiliate. There's only a couple of them in Oregon, so we're one of the two. You also get reciprocal admission to other Oregon museums that we're partnered with. So if there's a monthly, sort of a rolling monthly free admission. So some months, September is the free month for us. So if you have a membership to the OMSI or the Washington Park Zoo, you can come to the museum here for free. If you have a membership to us, there's other months where you get to go to other museums for free, different one for each month.
And the Rice Museum is a nonprofit.
Yes, we are a nonprofit.
Even if you can't make the trip out here, which you totally should make the trip out here.
I think it's worth it.
You can always support a cool museum like this and lower that tax bracket.
Absolutely. So we'll accept donations. Most of the stuff in the gift shop will ship. So not zeolites. I'm afraid we are generally, the zeolites are too delicate to
So
to ship.
I feel like I might be saving some of these zeolites here might be finding their way back to my house.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for showing us the whole museum.
Of course, yeah.
And I have some material here I would like to look at as well. In the next video, we will be looking at some material from Rudy's collection that is from the Rock Island Dam, along with some of his personal writings. And there's a very special object that we're going to look at as well. So thank you so much for showing us the museum today. This is fantastic.